Good afternoon, Frank.
Hello, Professor.
It's been a couple of weeks since we talked,
Just two.
and of course things keep on happening. But I think that what happened, was it earlier today or yesterday? I'm not quite sure. I think it's probably yesterday in Istanbul is probably a good place to start. Americans are used to being all over the world and being in uniform all over the world and not having any trouble. But apparently, although I don't think we know the details yet, an American sailor was attacked in a street in Istanbul, of all places.
Mm-hmm.
And there seems to be a divided reaction to it in Turkey, but certainly it shows that there is now a great deal of opposition in even a place like Turkey to the way Americans are handling the current Middle East situation. And this is not unsurprising, but it draws our attention to the impossible task that Obama has in trying to develop a long-term policy that will achieve something while at the same time catering to the people who elected him and the people who didn't elect him.
Let me ask you a question. The negativity in Turkey that led to the attack, is it negativity resulting from a concern that the United States is not doing enough against ISIS?
I think, of course, we don't know. I think we don't have the details about just exactly what the motivation was. But what we know, all the things that are going on, that could be part of the motivation. And one is, of course, the American criticism of Turkey for not crossing the border, using its power to help the what has been called the coalition of the repentant to take over Kobani and get rid of push back the Islamic State.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be that, but it could be simply the fact that America keeps on doing things in the Middle East which oppose local initiatives,
Mm-hmm.
Taking sides, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know which side is going to win in the long run. And in fact, we have great difficulty in making up our minds which side we would like to win in the long run, because we know which people we don't want to win, but among all the people that we are siding with when we fight them are a number of people that we also would like to see not win.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very difficult situation.
Well, it's unfortunate that in international relations that long ago used term of a regional policeman has gone out of vogue, because Turkey perhaps, or I understand ethnically and culturally they would have difficulty doing that, but that was the old role that the United States had the Shah of Iran play. It's unfortunate
Yeah.
that nobody's there to do that.
I mean, I think what this has to do with globalization is that in the past it was easy to divide any problem into two sides and you were either for or against.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's not possible anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same way that it's very difficult to have one man leading 300 million people in a political system, it's very difficult when problems arise to see easily what the two sides are, because there's more than two sides.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to have some influence on what's going on, and you're not part of it yourself to begin with, so you're not really fighting directly for your own interests, it's very difficult to know what to do. And of course, America's problem is that a lot of people in other parts of the world have expectations of America. So America has to both satisfy its electorate and satisfy the expectations in other parts of the world in order to decide what it's going to try to get done.
It's an impossible task.
I think it's a type of task that's going to become more and more complex, more and more difficult.
Well, even there's criticism today. I saw about President Obama's private letter that he sent to the supreme leader in Iran. There's Sunni concern and there's Israeli concern, not to mention congressional Republican concern, God forbid, leave them out, that this signals a swing toward a stronger détente with the Iranians.
Did you see that The Economist has a special issue on Iran?
I did not, but I shall see that.
And The Economist always gets to me late for some reason, and I'm not sure what date was on this, but it was sometime in October, I believe.
All right.
And it has a lead article, the first lead article, and a special section in the middle on Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things it says is, and I can't remember the wording exactly, and I've certainly not read the whole thing yet, one of the things it says is that the West's orientation towards Iran is long out of date.
Out of date, dating back to the Ayatollah Khomeini idea, that era?
But presumably dating back to the when the hostages were taken in '79. I imagine that that's what they have in mind.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very sophisticated urban country,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't treat it that way. Even though everybody who's had anything to do with the negotiating team knows that they're great people to have dinner with, and
Yes.
that's not true of many of the national leaders of many countries these days.
No. Can we talk a little bit about climate change? I was very impressed with the 7 months of secret negotiations that Washington had with Beijing that led up to the climate change agreement that they announced yesterday. First of all, I didn't think anything could be kept a secret anymore. That was number one.
Climate change is a very interesting topic, and what happened in Beijing makes it, if anything, more interesting, because it raises it to another journalistic level. So it's not just Obama versus the Republicans or whatever else has been going on in the headlines recently, but it's actually the two main polluters coming to an agreement about what they're going to do. How many years from now? 15, 16 years from now.
Yes. Yeah, I think
by which time, according to some people, it's going to be far too late to do anything anyway.
Right.
But one wonders what information either of them actually has, because according to the detailed information that is being given to us in lectures in an academic environment here at the University of Pennsylvania, everything that we're being told about global warming in terms of the actual data is correct, but the context is being left out. And without the context, the data may not have the meaning that we're being told it has. So the data we're being given has to do with the effects of our energy use on the ability for us to but we live in a world in which the climate has been changing for a long time. In fact, it's never stopped changing. And we need to see the way it's changing today in the context of the longer term trajectory of change. And I'm not going to try to put all of the details that I've been given in the last couple of weeks. Even if I could remember them, I wouldn't try to put them in a few sentences now. But just in general, it's probably time we had a new ice age.
Well, it would sure wreak havoc with the mosquito population.
The poles may be beginning to flip. You know, they flipped before.
Yes.
Signs have already been noticed of the sort of lead up to a new flip. I mean, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but Uh, so there are all sorts of things going on in the longer term history of climate change
So let
that
me
makes the future of the specific contribution we're making to it now
mhm.
uncertain.
So let me back you up a little bit, and I know that you perhaps are not inviting this kind of a discussion, and that's fine. But when you said one wonders what kind of information is available to Obama
Yeah.
and the Chinese President Xi, um, do you think are you thinking that perhaps there's some sort of a recognition that the tipping point has already been passed, and that whatever is going to happen either naturally or with the aid
Well,
of human pollution. And
they're they're both dependent on popular opinion,
as they both
different
are. Yeah,
ways.
yeah, they both are in different ways. Yep.
Um, if they're making an international agreement and they're publicizing it, they're obviously thinking about whether it's going to please the people, it's going to increase their popularity or not. And if are they doing that because they really think doom is around the corner? If so, one would think they'd do something quicker than
Hmm.
16 years from now.
Hmm.
Or do they have much more detailed information and very good scientific advisors who are explaining all the complications to them and making them so that they can see that they just have to appear to be agreeing on what has to be done?
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. And now, if you took that's a very interesting. In all the years we've been talking, that I find that maybe the most interesting thing you've ever said. Because if you take that analysis and then adapt it to the context of any other decision made by any leader who is similarly buffeted by the vicissitudes of popular opinion, it leads to a completely different prism.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, since Obama is not George W. Bush, I mean, he's an intellectual president,
Hmm.
and President Xi, one can't just refer to him as Xi,
Right.
uh,
Right.
uh, probably is similar. Although I don't really know enough about his personal life, but he seems to be a very well qualified figure for this position. So one wouldn't be surprised to know that they know more than you might think they know.
That's
And
very
they've
interesting.
organized the flow of information to them better than other presidents have.
That's very interesting. Let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
What do you think of the global response to Ebola now? Now, the United States has declared itself Ebola free. Drug trials are starting in West Africa right now with the new drug, and also using the transfusions of blood from survivors. Several countries over there have been declared Ebola-free success stories. The uh, the epidemic seems to be coming under control.
Well, the most promising news is that the Médecins Sans Frontières have developed something that they think might lead to a successful vaccine against the Ebola.
Yes, they're trying
And
that out in
uh,
Guinea.
one assumes that, I mean, our scientific ability has reached the point where that should be possible to do. The question
Hmm.
is just how long it's going to take in any particular case, and
Hmm.
how far the disease will have spread before we become capable of doing it. So it's very hopeful.
It
Uh,
is.
uh,
You know who the biggest accelerating catalyst person was in that whole thing? Apparently, the president of the World Bank,
oh,
an
really?
an Asian fellow. I forget if he's
Yeah,
Korean or
from New England. Yes, what's his name?
I,
He's
it's
Korean,
yes,
but
he is Korean, but he got the World Bank involved in a very big way, and immediately he was the first responder. He sent over $100 million like
mm,
immediately, and he said this is an economic problem. It's a developmental problem. It's not just a medical problem. I mean, and the foresight he had was amazing because his staff apparently were voicing objections, saying
mm,
this isn't the traditional role of the World Bank. And he said, well, guess what? It is now. So,
Well,
you know,
my question is, how come banks always have money of that amount of money sitting around that they can just suddenly switch to a new
oh,
purpose?
well, yeah, and how can they have so much money around that they can easily pay $9 and $10 billion fines?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, I think that finance is going to be a big topic for us in in a future session, not very long from now, because um, so much seems to be changing in global finance that there's no understanding of in the news. And since finance is the most global, is further ahead in the process of globalization than almost anything else we might want to talk about, we should think about it more carefully.
well, we'd be happy to maybe pursue that in the next call next week.
Okay,
All right, thank you, Professor.
bye for now.